Welcome to the class of Research Methods and Legal Writing for the LLM program. In today's lecture, I'm going to discuss the concept of research and publication misconducts. The prerequisites of this course are basics of Indian constitutional law, basics of jurisprudence, and basics of social sciences. The objective of this course is to study and very particularly of this particular lecture is to see and to study what is intellectual honesty and research integrity. Secondly, how to maintain academic integrity. And thirdly, what are the various kinds of scientific misconducts and what are the various kinds of scientific misconducts and the various kinds of plagiarism, and then how to deal with the issues of scientific misconducts. To begin with, intellectual honesty is an applied method of problem solving characterized by an unbiased, honest attitude. Research integrity does not simply mean integrity of research data. Research integrity is a comprehensive term including the scientist's diligence and honesty, and it must be implemented throughout the entire research process. Research integrity, on the other hand, it means the use of honest and verifiable methods in proposing, performing, and evaluating research, reporting research results with particular attention to adherence to rules, regulations, guidelines, and following commonly accepted professional codes or norms. Academic integrity means the intellectual honesty in proposing, performing, and reporting any activity which leads to the creation of intellectual property for the academic purposes. For example, making dissertation, making projects, writing PhD thesis, dissertations, projects, this all is an intellectual work which is conducted in the area of academics. So academic integrity here, it means that whosoever is doing any kind of a research or writing a thesis or a dissertation must be honest by all means and ways in proposing, performing, and reporting all that activity. Further, it includes honesty, responsibility. Responsibility here means that what all work you are doing, you have written, what all cases you have quoted, case studies you have written in your research work, you have to be responsible for that. You have to take the accountability of what you have written in your work, and the maintenance of academic standards in academics. That means that no work which is beyond a particular standard shall be submitted for the purpose of academic evaluation. Then honesty in academics means that all academic work results from an individual's own efforts and that due credit is given to other people's ideas. For example, if you're writing your dissertation, your project, your thesis, so what all references, what all sources you have referred, all the sources need to be properly referred in the bibliography and the reference section of your research work. Okay, moving on to further, how to maintain academic integrity. Now, in order to maintain academic integrity, one need to either as an individual or as a group, as a member of a group, one need to be while creating, expressing, writing your work or your ideas, it is very important that all the source of information is properly acknowledged. Also, all scripts independently, which have been mentioned, they have to be clearly mentioned. And in case if there is any academic collaboration, that collaboration must also be brought on record for the purpose of academic, for the purpose of maintaining academic integrity. Along with that, one needs to accurately report results when conducting research or in clinical or laboratory work, and honestly during examination. That means that not only the writing, what all data you have created, what all data you have gathered, all the reports and the analysis of the data, or the analysis of the work data, be it a clinical observation or it is a laboratory work, or if it is an experimental work, it should be honestly reported and brought on records. Okay, moving ahead, let's talk about what are the various kinds of scientific misconducts which are popular in case of research and publication. There are three scientific misconducts which I intend to discuss today. The first is falsification, the second is fabrication, and the third is plagiarism, which is popularly called as FFP. To begin with the first one, falsification. Falsification is the changing or omission of research results, that is, the data which you have gathered to support claims, hypothesis, or any other analysis. Falsification can include the manipulation of research instrumentation, material, or processes. Manipulation of images or representation in a manner that distorts the data or reads too much between the lines can also be considered as falsification. So in a way, in falsification, what one does is the person changes the data or the person omits uh, the research results to support certain claim and hypothesis. Now, all this is being done here with a malified intention to actually change the results, because when the result is going to be changed, that way the interpretation of the work or of the study is also going to give a different result. So falsification is one major kind of a scientific misconduct. Moving on to the second one is fabrication. Now, as a law student, you know that fabrication means when there is no real data, but rather you construct, you bring on some data, or it is a case of addition of data or construction of data, observation or characterization that never occurred in the gathering of data or running of experiments. Fabrication can occur when filling out the rest of experiment. For example, claims about results need to be made on complete data sets, as in case of as a normal assumption. But where claims made are based on incomplete or assumed result is a form of fabrication. For example, let's suppose a study is required to be conducted wherein a data set of a sample size of around 100 was expected. So here the researcher was supposed to interview 100 people, or a researcher was supposed to interview 100 people, but the researcher has only interviewed 50 people, or maybe less than that, and the rest of the data he or she has manipulated. That means he or she has fabricated to fill up the required gap. So this is a case of a fabrication. So again, this is it is another scientific misconduct, because here the researcher has not been honest in his or her work. Moving on to the third one, which is very popular also, and which is a very common scientific misconducts, that is the plagiarism. Now, this plagiarism is actually, it is believed, as a normal understanding, it is something when you steal somebody else's work and then you lie about it. So in simple word, it is an act of fraud. The Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines the act of plagiarism as to steal and pass off ideas or words of another as one's own. So plagiarism in plain and simple language is an act of fraud. It is the adoption or reproduction of the ideas, words, statements, etc. of another without due acknowledgement, paraphrasing someone's idea without citation, etc. It is one of the most common form of scientific research misconduct. Now let's have a look at what are the various kinds of plagiarism. On the screen you can see these are the various kinds of plagiarism: direct plagiarism, mosaic plagiarism, direct plagiarism, mosaic plagiarism, self-plagiarism, accidental plagiarism, partial plagiarism, ideal plagiarism, and then use plagiarism. To begin with, the direct plagiarism, which is called as which is also known as complete plagiarism, is when a person actually does is a person presents the entire text, report, research paper, dissertation written by someone else as his or her own work. So in case of direct plagiarism, a person does 100% copy of somebody else's work. So in a way, it is a case of direct stealing. You just steal somebody's work completely. Direct plagiarism, it is in a way it is a word-to-word transcription of a section or someone else's work without attribution and without quotation marks. But here, majorly in case of direct plagiarism, there is an entire theft of the work. The deliberate plagiarism of someone else's work is actually it's unethical, it is academic dishonesty, and this is something which calls for serious disciplinary action including expulsion. And direct plagiarism is one of the severest kind of plagiarism. Moving on to the second one, mosaic plagiarism. In this case, a person combines texts and ideas from different sources without citation. Mosaic plagiarism occurs when a student borrows phrases from a source without using quotation marks or finds synonyms for the author's language while keeping to the same general structure and meaning of the original. It is also called as patch writing. This kind of paraphrasing, whether intentional or not, is academically dishonest and punishable even if you footnote your source. It is not necessary that the author consults and looks into many papers by various researchers in case, and this is also a serious kind of a plagiarism. The third kind of a plagiarism is self-plagiarism. Here, a person uses passages and ideas from his or her own previously submitted work. Self-plagiarism occurs when a student or when a researcher submits his or her own previous work or mixes parts of previous works without permission from all people here involved. Suppose if it is a work of a single person, let's say as a researcher, as an academician, if a person quotes and cites his own last 2, 3, 4 papers uh, in a new paper by combining the work or by quoting, by citing his own work, that is also a case of self-plagiarism. And this is again a kind of plagiarism, but it is a moderate kind of a plagiarism. And it occurs, as I said, that when you quote your own work from a previously published paper to a new journal or publication. It's a moderate kind of a plagiarism, although. The another kind of a plagiarism is accidental plagiarism. Now, just because here the word accident is being used, it does not mean that it is a lighter kind of a plagiarism, but it is also moderate kind of a plagiarism. Accidental plagiarism occurs when a person neglects to cite their source or fails to give all the necessary information in source citation or misquote their sources. For example, you sit to write a research paper. You might have come across various citations, various sources, and although you have used that idea or you have done the paraphrasing, cited that source, but towards the end when you were supposed to refer that particular source, either you neglect to cite the source, or if you have misquoted that source, or if you have cited that source incompletely, that could be a case of accidental plagiarism. Here, the difference, there is a possibility that there is a lack of content involved here in this particular case. But again, to be noted here is that because of lack of content, it does not absolve the students of responsibility for plagiarism. And ultimately, the cases of accidental plagiarism are taken as seriously as any other plagiarism and are subject to the same range of consequences as other type of plagiarism. The next category of plagiarism is partial plagiarism. Now, partial plagiarism is when a person takes work from a multiple amount of authors and just paraphrase text from those authors without doing the actual research. What happens most often is that people copy text like sentence structure and change certain vocabulary terms for different words that would still make sense in context of the text. This is when a person take work from a multiple amount of authors and just paraphrase text from those authors without doing the actual research. It is again a moderate kind of plagiarism. The second last to discuss here is ideal plagiarism. In ideal plagiarism, the author is too smart. The author robs the paper, the research paper, or the dissertation, or the research project, or the data from private or personal properties of the other person much before the original work gets published, either in the form of a paper or a report or whatever. The main or original author could not prove the plagiarism claim because in that case the person might not have any record uh, to prove that this was this person's original work. So ideal plagiarism is another, it is again a very serious kind of a plagiarism. And the last one is juice plagiarism. Here, the person copies the ideas and parts of paper and mixes them with new parts so the work seems as new writing. So in the case of this is the most difficult type of plagiarism to be detected by human or machine factors. Uh, Now let's have a look at what is the difference between appropriate and inappropriate paraphrasing. In case of appropriate paraphrasing, not only the words but also the entire sentence structure is changed. And here a writer must be able to completely understand the work and ideas of others and converts them into his or her own thoughts. So in appropriate paraphrasing, the researcher or the writer over here is supposed to understand the concept and then writes the entire concept is in his or her own words. But in case of inappropriate paraphrasing, the structure of the original passage is maintained and only a few words are changed. So there is a change of just few words. So this is something which is and this is in this particular inappropriate paraphrasing case, the main sentence is kept as it is. Only few words are actually changed. The last topic to discuss here is the last part over here to discuss here is redundant publication. Now, redundant publications is also called as duplicate publication, wherein an article that is similar or identical to one's previously published work gets published. Compared to self-plagiarism, which reuses only a small portion of the text, Redundant publication reuses the same material on a much larger scale. The most common form of redundant publication is duplication of data. An example is presenting 5 different data in one paper and reusing 3 of them as result in another paper. Self-plagiarism and duplicate publications are not technically plagiarism because they do not steal the work of another person. However, using portions of one's previously published work is not only a copyright infringement against the first publisher, but also a depreciation of one's own work. To have a more reading and to have a better and more reading about these concepts, you may like to refer to the textbook and the reference book on the PPT page. Thank you so much.